Good morning, everyone. Here from Finland, and last night, not so long ago, we were having a little bit of a SOTI, Seeds of the Infinite program too. Just a spontaneous thing to discuss the more abstract implications behind creation. More the philosophical approach, and now we're back to the details of the ray of meticulous entirety, as Master DK is presenting that in his astrology book, working on the science of triangles. He's basically saying this is the most occult book he has written so far, and that is because it deals entirely with the realm of energy. So I noticed that a few of you are back in the process, and I applaud your fortitude to come back here so quickly and engage in something in a way so different from what we were discussing last night. Just like to welcome Annette, New Zealand, and Antoinette Dutois, and Catherine, Karen, Mariut, Martha, Zenaidi, and Veronica, and here on staff, Michael is supporting the process, and Tuya is there too. So let's get into we've been talking about our, this figure, which is, in a way, the archetype, it's a diamond figure. It's an archetype of movement as triangles are created, and I wouldn't be surprised when I see that diamond shape and think of the idea of the diamond soul, which is the egoic lotus on the point of the fourth initiation, when the jewel in the lotus is being revealed because the synthesis petals have sprung open. I wouldn't be surprised if some kind of movement, such as is here presented, is also active in that jewel process. But, he hasn't dealt with that yet, and that's, quite an esoteric factor. What is the jewel in the lotus? It seems like it's always present. It seems like every lotus has its central first ray part to it, and that is frequently symbolized by the idea of the jewel. Let's just kind of reach out to each other in a moment of silence, And our goal is to think together and work together in such a way that we are able to receive the patterns that DK is presenting to us. Now remember, one of the names of the second ray is the ray of the divine pattern. Very interesting. And another thing, dealing with the kind of detail that we run into when Master DK presents his work on the second ray. It's called the ray of detailed unity. When he asks us not to lay emphasis only upon the detail, but upon the pattern which all of this detail revealed. So we've been talking about the circulation of energy, and I think here we are. I hope that's where we are. Yeah, okay. And maybe there may be maybe a little repetition. I'm not sure. It's not going to hurt us. So this in this picture, and when we think of the human being, the monad, which is that perception, ongoing perception of oneness, regardless of the variety with which we are presented. The monad is the emanating center, and the evocative, where it says evocative force, we have the soul energy, and the magnetic center is the personality. And then he deals with some other factors, ending with critical force. He comes back, and we follow the triangle from point, we might call it point 4, and then coming again to point 2, it's really point 5, and coming to point 3, it's really point 6 with respect to the lower triangle. And he has told us, that as far as these distributing centers are called, they can be very large structures. We just have to have a superior triangle above a fourth point, even as the triangle of logoic, monadic, and atmic energies hovers above the Buddhic vehicle, which, from a certain perspective, is like the embodiment of those three and can distribute their energies into a lower world. The point of all this is that the higher worlds eventually have to make their way, in terms of their patterns, into the lower worlds, so that there can be a reconditioning of the lower energies, which are still in large measure conditioned by the experiences on the moon chain, and even more conditioned by the sort of third ray intelligence experiences in the previous solar system. And we're trying to bring everything that must be redeemed, including a lot of material in our own system, into proper relation with the second ray energies, because after all, the idea should be familiar. This is a second ray solar system. And it's actually the fifth in order, but it's the second major solar system, and it deals with the development of, particularly of soul energy within the solar logos. Now, it's an initiatory solar system, and before long we're going to be, well, the next initiation ahead of our solar logos is the third initiation, and the fourth cosmic initiation will definitely be taken in this solar system. Now, if all works very well, then the fifth initiation may also be taken in this solar system by our solar logos, but those are issues which are way, way ahead of us, and for the time being, we have to learn how to respond more and more under the influence of higher mind, because that's what our solar logos is working on, even though our planetary logos is working on getting its cosmic astral body in order. So as above, so below, and according to the tasks which our superiors are working on, so will be the reflection in the kinds of tasks that we are working on too. Let's go on here. It must be noted. Now, some of this I may have read, I don't know, but as I say, it probably doesn't hurt, And I'm going to make it in whatever color. So if I need to write something in, I can do so. Okay. The masses of men, those who express the mass consciousness, and I would say that ends up being maybe 80% of the people, the bulk of humanity, 85%, they're not so much the moonshine types, and they haven't had time to get too far yet. The masses of men express downpouring energy from the magnetic center. Now, that is the personality center over here. It's a 1, 2, 3, monad, soul, personality. The magnetic center is the personal center. So that's where they express their energy. Their rightful trend is, at present, downward into physical manifestation and experience. And just think, sometimes we say, well, why can't people out there, it's just so logical, why can't they accept occultism? Why aren't they interested in that? Why don't they really care about their spiritual development? Well, that's not their agenda. Not yet. They're not yet really in any way consciously treading the path of return. Yes, there was kind of a turning, after Atlantis. The Aryan race is rising and taking everybody with it, because Atlantis is the sort of the 4 of 4. It's the very bottom of the arc. But not consciously. They're not treading this path of return, though with greater education, it becomes possible that some of these people will awaken to that possibility. So their objective is experience in the lower 3 worlds. That's where their interest really is. And they have not experienced what DK calls the reversal of the wheel, which one of these reversals actually takes place when the 5th pedal is being developed. When you come into incarnation as a 5th pedal person, you can be quite selfish. By the time you leave your concentration upon the 5th pedal, you're already an aspirant, or may have even taken the first initiation. And, you can see that it's going to be a big process, because there's got to be some kind of crash and burn event that literally turns you around and makes it possible for you to pursue the higher things. But that's not where the masses are right now. And, it was so interesting what DK said. Look, if you turn the development of humanity entirely over to disciples, and they are really running the show, they will create a far greater cleavage within the human race than otherwise might have been the case, because they'll be insisting on their spiritual values, and other people will be pulling in a different direction, which is right and suitable for them. Okay, so let's get that into our mind. Sometimes we want things to hurry up, and let's have everybody read Alice Bailey, but a little thought, obviously, or Theosophy or The Secret Doctrine, it's not going to work. People aren't interested. They have other things to develop. They're working on earlier pedals in their developmental process. So you have to know to whom to speak. And, DK, when he was making his groups of 9 and that kind of attempt to externalize his ashram, he was selective in whom he chose out of the arcane school, and those also who were not in the arcane school. He had to be. He had to know who would really respond to what he was saying. There's no use hoping for response from someone for whom it is not the next step. So anyway, the masses of men from the magnetic center, and here we are ourselves as aspirants and probationers. That's the next step. Aspirants and probationers express responsiveness to the pull of the evocative center. Now, what is that pull? Downward pointing arrow, or is the upward pointing arrow sufficient to indicate both the pull and the aspiration? Because these people do have aspiration. I would say the probationer is a little further along the path than the aspirant, but he tells us that all true aspirants, depends on how we define these words, but all true aspirants have taken the first initiation. And, we say, well, I'm aspiring to the soul, and I really do want to participate in soul consciousness. Let's just say that unless the downward gazing soul did some work in attempting to evoke the personality, or evoke the incarnated personality. See, let's just say there's the personality out of incarnation, has dropped a lot of vehicles, and the one that's deeply embedded. But unless the soul center evoked us, or invoked us hoping for an evocation, an answer, we wouldn't be answering the way we do. So it's not just suddenly we wake up and decide we're going to aspire to something higher. The soul, or the evocative center, has been doing its work in order to present to us certain ideas and energy streams and energy flows which say, wait a second, what's going on here? And we begin to look up and look in. So it really is a two-way street. And what we're going to find with this diagram is that, eventually I think those arrows are going to go in both directions. Just the way Shambhala and hierarchy have to correspond to each other in hierarchy, and the personality and the soul-infused personality has to, let's just say Shambhala has to enter the soul-infused personality. So it's going to be just like that other triangles drawing that I've shown you quite a bit, and I don't want to go on a hunt for it right now, where it shows you in the past things were not complete. In the present, things are more complete, and you've got some double arrows. And in the future, everything will be complete, and you have a two-way street going on between each one of the centers, Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity. All right. Now, so aspirants and probationers express responsiveness to the pull of the evocative center. Their urge is towards the path of return. Now, it's so difficult sometimes for someone who's on the path of return to talk to someone who's on the path of outgoing, because they just have different directions and different purposes, and they don't understand each other, and it leads to friction. And, the person on the path of return says, well, you're going to have to return. Why don't you just turn around and return? But the reversal of the wheel occurring in the change of energy direction, which accompanies the opening of the fifth petal, has not really occurred yet. So we can't pretend like it has occurred. What about accepted disciples? We all want to be, I would say, accepted disciples and have a closer connection with the master. That is a reasonable thing. And what does he say here? says accepted disciples and initiates express the interplay. So that sounds like a two-way street. Express the interplay along the baseline between the evocative center and the magnetic point. Now, what's the very first thing we do when we start to meditate? Here we are as a fairly integrated personality, at least in the material sense. We can handle the world with efficiency, and we reach up to a higher power. Everybody's got different names for it. The people who are in the 12-step programs, they call it the higher power. We call it the soul or solar angel. But it is some source of beauty and of light and love which seems to be above and beyond us. But the very first thing we do is this. We follow this dotted line here into the egoic lotus, and that's our first type of meditation. Now, when we succeed in that, we get an answer from the soul, and then we aspire some more and try to focus on the soul, and the soul responds even more. So that is the interplay that's occurring along the baseline, and at the very least, friends, we should be dealing with that interplay, because that is the soul curriculum that Master DK has presented us with. And until that is somewhat established, the Antakarana and spirit curriculum isn't going to make much sense. Because in order to project into the higher spaces of the spiritual triad, you have to have been absorbing energies from the soul, from the knowledge petals, from the love petals, from the sacrifice petals, even from the synthesis petals and the jewel. Before projection along this line is really possible, that absorption from the soul is necessary around the area of retained energies whose center is, in a way, the mental unit. And then projection towards the monastic permanent atom here on the highest level of the mental plane becomes possible. So first the soul, and then the Antakarana triad, and eventually the monad. Well, I don't know how we consider ourselves, are we accepted disciples, are we initiates, whatever. But at least we know we have to work on the baseline, which is part of blending the higher reality with the lower reality. That baseline is shared in common, and we have to make it a very solid thing. So anyway, I'm talking about here a returning arrow may be required. The disciple, I say, will be found at the magnetic point. See, at first it's just the personality, but what is the disciple? The disciple is the soul within the personality. So each one of these points will have something new about them when there is a return flow. In the beginning, it's the monad, it's the soul, it's the personality, but before long, it ends up being the soul in a special relationship to both the monad and the personality, and it ends up being the magnetic center changes from just the separative, selfish personality into the disciple, the true aspirant, someone who has soul energy working within the personality. That's its second meaning, and it will have a second meaning because after the magnetic center is passed once, then it comes back to the evocative center and is passed again. and the magnetic center is different in the case of two types of people. One type of person is the average non-aspiring individual who wants to work at the lower activities. The other is the one who has been invoked by the soul and evoked, or an evocation is followed, and wants to follow the way up to the soul and beyond. So I hope that is clear. Now, what's the next group? The higher initiates and masters utilize and express the energy blended in the magnetic center. Now, what did I say earlier? We have personal energy, yes, but we also have the presence of the soul when we visit the magnetic center the second time. See, now, maybe a lot of us are doing that, and we expect more out of the personality now as an instrument, rather than just having it, be something that we want to experience life through. DK tells us, that the more advanced spiritual type is not so much interested in experience in the three worlds as it is interested in using the three worlds for service purposes. So soul infusion is going, and through the soul is coming some energy of the spirit. The jewel in the lotus has been a little bit absorbed, and that is coming from, in a sense, the emanating center. So that's the condition of the evocative force center and the magnetic center the second time around. I guess the thing to remember there is that they have a different form of expression the second time around, when the energy returns to them, but from a different direction. Okay, so now their task, these higher initiates and masters, using the absorbed energies of the soul with a little bit of spirit in there as well, are heading straight into the higher spaces where the monad can be found. And I would say that when you're an initiate of the third degree or of the fourth degree, you are definitely making a connection between this magnetic center and the emanating center. Now, maybe a while before that connection is perfect, and I would say, the complete return to the emanating center, complete return, not just contact, doesn't really happen until the sixth initiation. Okay? A little more. Thus, the sixfold triangle, objective and subjective, is completed. Well, we know that the superior triangle is the subjective part, deeply interior. DK distinguishes, just because something is subtle doesn't mean it's subjective. Now, we have a subtle emotional body. We have a subtle mental body, but both of them are considered objective from the point of view of what the soul really is. So the true world of objectivity is not only the outer plane, but the astral plane is included, and the lower part of the mental plane is included as well. So in this arrangement, the sixfold triangle is seen as a fourfold diamond, yes, and end of this description of the interrelationship of the 3 points and their relation to a fourth or manifesting point. The main thing is, look, Capricorn, get spirit into matter. We have, this is the so-called hospital of the solar system. We've got a lot of hangovers here and people with hangovers from earlier undigested experiences on the third ray and the subsidiary rays, and we have to learn how to change these energies. Now, that's exactly what the diamond shape allows us to do, to get right down there into the lower energies within the dense physical body of the planetary logos and change them, redirect them so that they can harmonize with the prevailing second ray energies. Now, DK tells us third ray and second ray just don't get along very well, and that's really interesting. He makes that reference in relation to a lady's second ray astral body and third ray physical body, but it's a general principle. Those two rays do not easily combine and work with each other. Okay, a little more here. Right. It will, of course, be obvious to you that it will not be possible to deal with all the various triangles of energy which are effective on our Earth and which incidentally affect humanity exhaustively. Now, why did he put that word exhaustively there? First, the Earth and the effect of the triangles upon the Earth, and then the effect upon part of the Earth life, which is humanity. And just think what it is to be aware. Sometimes Master DK talks about the ability to withstand the strain of knowing. Now we say, oh, well, just, bring it on, I want to know. But it can be too much for us, and we cannot hold the integration if too much information is given to us, which we cannot really understand, nor can we apply it. But anyway, we are really being affected by the triangles, and there's a lot of them, which is the way that is expressed by saying their name is Legion. But certain triangular relationships can be tentatively considered, and, because probably they mean a lot more than he can say, so he's giving at least a hint about their nature. Certain triangular relationships can be tentatively considered, and their place in the planetary or in the individual horoscope can then be later worked out. Now, he's got so many astrological hints and directives up his sleeve, and I was very encouraged to realize that around the year 2025, one of the first presentations that he's going to give in his new series of communications, whether it's books or however he works, is going to be a continuation of the astrological teaching. And there is a lot to continue. So certain triangular relationships can be tentatively considered, and their place in the planetary or in the individual horoscope, we've got to know the planetary horoscope, and we don't, they know it, can later be worked out. And when he says later, how many decades, generations, or centuries is it? In the new astrology, which will be that of the soul. Just think about that for a minute. The paramount consideration of the 12 houses, which are now of such importance, to all of us, will emerge, will be less emphasized, and the consideration of the 3 crosses will emerge in their place. So from the houses to the crosses, but, I'm thinking that we cannot exactly, for the average non-aspiring type, we can't really abandon the houses, and he actually does go through quite a bit about the houses, and he asks us to work out that whole thing, at which we always did in our esoteric astrology classes. We worked out a way to approach houses in an ordinary, more concrete manner, and how to approach them in a way that was fitting for spiritual development. But there's going to be a new type of 12-armed horoscope, and they will be the charts of the crosses. These 3 crosses make together 12 arms. They have oppositional relationships, and they have cross relationships, and they have triangular relationships. It's not just you're looking at 12, it breaks down into the division by certain numbers, that can be divided into the 12, the number 6, the number 4, the number 3, the number 2. All of them produce different types of relationships, or aspects. Oppositions for division by 6, and division by 4 produces crosses, and division by 3, 4 produces triangles, and division by 3 produces crosses, and division by 2 produces hemispheres. So there's a lot of mathematics going into this, and numerical symbology is important when we look at the geometrical configurations within the 12. These 3 crosses, he says, make together 12 arms, and it is the energy flowing through the 12 arms and their place in the soul horoscope, whatever that is, which will assume the major importance. Now, some people are trying to get at the soul horoscope. They look at prenatal charts and charts of appropriation. It all gets quite complex until you've got something like 49 charts for every individual. I knew a man, he was very famous. He invented the stabilizing bar on the helicopter. He was the scientific type, but he was fascinated by astrology, and he had worked on one chart throughout his entire life, and it was his own, and he was just trying to dig up those 49 charts. Well, maybe computer science will help us there, because it's a very tedious process, but we cannot deny that there are inner charts. And from a certain perspective, when did you become individualized? Think of it, because that's when the causal body, or the egoic vehicle, the egoic lotus, sprang into being. Now that has to be an important moment astrologically. There are certain general trends that he gives us: Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Pisces. They're all important in the birthing of the soul. But when was that moment in time when you came into birth as a soul and you really entered the 4th kingdom of nature? That would be very important in interpreting the chart of the soul, and we have no way yet to get there. So, but the soul horoscope, he sounds the need for that. This, he says, I will enlarge upon when we take up the theme of the 3 crosses, and, we're probably going to do that. The 12 houses concern the personality, and now think about that. They concern the personality, and we still have a lot of personality rearrangement to go through in order to live effectively and spiritually. There's a lot of adjustments. So if we leave the houses in place and, of course, inevitably argue about which house system is the best and why, we're dealing with the personality. However, the 4 arms of the 3 crosses concern the soul. It's kind of interesting. There's an old and funny saying that the personality just loves trines, sort of division by 4. But the soul loves squares. So the tougher the better, and the more difficulty there is from the perspective of the soul, the better. So the crosses concern the soul, and it is these 12 and their appearance in the horoscope, or their failure so to appear, that's a hint, which will govern the horoscope of the soul, because sometimes there's going to be some blank spaces, and what do you do about that? Do you try to cultivate those areas of blankness? Well, maybe you do. We have to find out more about what's missing in our nature. None of us yet has completely built the Temple of Solomon. We're still here. Even if we would be initiates of the 3rd degree, we would not have completely built the Temple of Solomon, the causal body. And if we were truly initiates of the 4th degree, well, we just wouldn't be in classes of this nature and so forth. We would be on to other things. All of the 4 influences of the 3 crosses will be found present in the chart of a master. And the masters consult their own charts too, and in different ways. And they consult our charts in ways that are different from the way we usually approach a horoscope. All the 4 influences of the 3 crosses will be found present in the chart of a master. I say whether or not there are planets in each arm of each cross. Therefore, an indication of which constellations, maybe that's a hint, because sometimes the word constellations is used, and sometimes the word sign is used. And a sign is an area of Davic life near the earth, which can concentrate the energy of a constellation and see it applied in our daily lives. So, there are, therefore, an indication of which constellations are primarily related to the unfoldment of consciousness and to the evolution of spiritual understanding is of significant use here. Now, I guess he's hinting that there are certain constellations that are really involved in the expansion of soul consciousness, and others less so. The major cosmic triangle works primarily through 6 constellations, and at this time, and again at this time. Remember the law of mutation, how everything keeps on changing its relationship to everything else. So when things are not understood and contradictions appear to be present, always look at the timing of something. What time is he talking about? So the major cosmic triangle is working through 6 constellations. Again, at this time, the cosmic constellation and the 2 zodiacal energies focus through a particular planet, using it as a transmitting agency to the earth. So let's see, what do we have here? We have studied the 18-fold chart, which we had the 3 major constellations working through the 3 zodiacal constellations. I'll see what that means in just a minute. So the cosmic constellations are Sirius. Now notice he's calling Sirius a constellation, because I think what I'm putting down here is correct, and I think you'll see that. The cosmic constellations are Sirius, Pleiades, and the Great Bear. Sirius works through Cancer and Capricorn, and Saturn is the ruling planet for distribution and for transmission to the Earth. The Pleiades works through Gemini and Sagittarius, two very important discipleship signs. Mercury is still the planet, as was the case in the 18-fold chart. And the Great Bear, it works through Aries and Libra. The sun is veiling Vulcan. So there's a figure here, and I'd like to see what it is. What page it's on. I think I copied it, and then now I cannot find it the way I would like to.
You may have to go to Esoteric Astrology and click on.
Yeah, I can see that, and I just did it, but it's somewhere here, and I'm not going to. Okay, what page are we on? 466.
65.
Right. There's the picture, and I have that picture. I did that one. I definitely did that one, and I'm trying to figure out where it is because I just inserted it, and I'd like to be able to. Well, I'll just have to pull it out next time. It's here, and I just put it in. So that's the way it goes. All right. Well, we're not going to do too much more right now because we need, to consider your thoughts on these matters. So this is the... Okay. Excuse me. Just 1 second. There's the figure. And, of course, that's what you see. Sirius is working through Cancer and Capricorn, and Saturn. Frankly, there's a progression here, okay? Sirius works through Cancer, Capricorn, and Saturn is the distributing planet, the Pleiades. I don't know how many of them. Maybe it is just the 7, and maybe, there's almost 1,000 there. They're working through Gemini and Sagittarius, and their planet of distribution is Mercury, and then the Great Bear is working through Aries and Libra. Now, the sun is there, but it's going to be the sun veiling something. It always is. And the sun can veil Vulcan, yes, but if the sun veils Uranus, and we go back and look for the rulership in this triangle, we find that Uranus is the hierarchical ruler of Aries and the esoteric ruler of Libra, and so it would be very fitting. Now, this is the triangle, this series of triangles, and what they mean are what we're going to study the next time. For now, I think we've looked at this sufficiently, and it's here, definitely. And we'll get on to the path of purification, the path of discipleship, and the path of initiation, because that's exactly what we have, a progression. When you look at this thing, you have a progression from the probationary path here to the path of discipleship here to the path of initiation here. And I think even if we turn to page 50 in Esoteric Astrology, let's give that a little bit of a look. We may find something similar. Yeah, we do find something similar right there. only it's a bit in reverse order. Still, it shows you where the energies come from, and instead of a planet, it gives you a hierarchy through which they work. Sirius still works through Cancer, Capricorn, and Saturn. And the fifth creative hierarchy is invoked, and it's a very high hierarchy that is almost liberated onto the cosmic astral plane. The Great Bear still works through Aries and Libra, and here the sun is veiling Vulcan. So maybe that's the hint we want and need. Vulcan, however, does not have any rulership either of Aries or of Libra. I'm not sure about the decanates, but I think Uranus is much more of a ruler, just the way Saturn is a ruler of Capricorn. And then we get to this discipleship combination. Gemini and Sagittarius are ruled by Mercury. And the fourth creative hierarchy, these are liberated hierarchies. In other words, when we're talking about where this energy comes from to us, after it leaves the main source, what we're talking about is the following. These, okay? These are the ones we're talking about. And, when it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're not talking about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the next tabulation, which would be this. We're not talking about this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is on the cosmic physical plane. We're talking about 5 liberated or almost liberated hierarchies that are involved in those great paths of probation, of discipleship, and of initiation. So that's what we'll do the next time. And meanwhile, I was so happy that I found the figure, but I don't want to take time to go looking for it. So we're ending number 41, correct, Michael? I think beginning on right.
That is correct.
Okay, good. Okay, this is it. Okay, so this is how far we got. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and go. And now we end of 41. And today, here at least, is the 26th of June. And we're going from 463 to maybe not too far, I suspect.
It's 465.
Is it? Okay, good. Thanks, Mike. Okay, appreciate that. So from 463 to 465, and we're supposed to be meeting next week, but let's see, and that's on a Wednesday, isn't it? So Tuya and I will be not here. So I will not be able to continue with that one, but come the Wednesday following, which would be the 10th, I will be able to continue, and this would be Wednesday 10, July 19, and it would be, as this one is, morning session. All right, if there's any mistakes here, we'll straighten them out and get to you. As I say, we'll be gone from Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday probably, and then back on the 5th, I believe. Yeah, Wednesday, probably probably will be able to do something on the, let's see, I'm in May. That's the problem, isn't it? Maybe we'll be able to do something on the 5th. The 3rd will not be possible for us. Okay, friends. So, some interesting material about who uses what kind of triangle, why they use the particular center, whether it's the evocative center, the emanating center, the evocative center, or the magnetic center, and how the evocative center and the magnetic center can be upgraded by the whole process. So the second time you come around, let's say in the life of real discipleship, the evocative center means more, and the magnetic center means more also. And then we're talking about work along the baseline for the disciple. Now, every one of us should be knowing what it's like to be invoking every day and trying to express the energy of the soul. That's our job. And some of this triangle diagramming helps us see how that happens. So, are there thoughts that you would like to enter into, or statements that you might have, or things that you would, just like to look at and examine? We're not taking a lot of pages every day. It's just not wise or possible. We're learning a little bit about the future of esoteric astrology, because what we discover is that there's going to be new types of horoscopes. And the horoscope of the present day, with all of its confusion as to what house system to use and so forth, will be for people of our type, who are aspiring to the higher life. It will be a thing of the past. I wouldn't be surprised that Master Decay will, while not giving us the whole thing, will help us understand how we can use these 12 arms of the horoscope and the crosses and the triangles. Basically, what he tells us is that when a master looks at the horoscope of a chela, a student, someone who's advancing, he sees triangles drawn in blue, which indicate the unfoldment of the spirit. He sees stars drawn in yellow, which means the unfoldment of the soul or consciousness. He sees squares drawn in black, which has to do with all the karmic factors and the difficulties of manifesting the higher energies in the lower worlds. And they can see a lot in a short time. That's the amazing thing about a master. They can condense everything. Suppose you write a book. You've seen it before. You write a book. Maybe it's a big book, whatever. They don't have to read every word of your book. They get an image in a design of what is contained within the book. It comes towards them. They can analyze that image or symbol, and then somehow they know, just what the value of the whole book is and what can be brought across. So just the way we can do more in less time as we become an initiate or become a master, so we can learn more in less time when we experience the higher initiations. He says the amount of learning between the third and the fourth initiation is tremendous. The necessity to absorb all that following the third degree. So, we hang on to our hats and we get ready for a more intense experience of occultism. All right. Any thoughts that you would like to bring forward? Any questions either on this material or in general on spiritual occultism? because it's all one field of knowledge. So the floor is open to you if you would like to say something or write something, as the case may be.
No one has their hand raised or has written anything yet, but I found it interesting how, in general, the four types of humanity listed here, you're showing the third and fourth, can be related, again, in general, with initiatory status.
Yes, that's true. And the flow of the energies in the triangle diagram has a lot to do with initiatory status. You see, somehow a number of pages slipped out of my document. I don't know how that happened, but if you'll see what's going to happen here, that when we get to page 473 in this document, I hope I'm correct, and if I'm not, it'll be 472, I believe. We're going to see these crises of the soul, and the crises are occurring to a large measure to the soul and not to the personality. And the second center, which is the evocative center, is the one that is particularly involved here. So we'll see that this diagram can give some keys to the evolutionary process of whatever type of entity we're talking about. Like he basically made a spiritual status exposition by looking at the different centers. If you're hanging out and you've returned to the evocative center, you're an initiate of the 6th degree. If you're working along the baseline, initiate of the 4th, 5th, or 3rd, and at the evocative center, the earlier initiations are found. So this will be a very important document, the crises of the soul, and I think we'll find it, quite interesting why certain signs of the zodiac should be involved in certain crises. But we have a little bit of time before we get there, so we'll, it'll be one or two times before we're really ready to look at that. Anything else there, Michael? As long as you're volunteering some thoughts.
Karen has her hand raised now.
Okay. Let me take a look here. And there is Karen, and there you go, Karen, you're on.
Okay, you had said that the signs are of Davic life near the Earth that can concentrate the energy of a constellation.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And the constellations are, of course, angelic Davic life, correct?
Well, the constellations are great lords that have connected with them. It's really hard to say whether you're dealing with what you call a man, in quotes, or dealing with a deva, in quotes, by the time you get to that level where the life is ensouling a collection of solar logoi. So he calls it, if we were to look up the term Lord of the constellation blank, 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 we would see he uses it in relation to Aries and Libra and maybe some other ones. They are huge lives. They are cosmic logoi. If you're ensouling a whole constellation, it's going to be very difficult to distinguish whether you're some kind of super heavenly man or whether you're some kind of super heavenly deva, because on the monadic plane, man and deva as life forms seem to come together. So I wouldn't assign them to one or the other. I would just say they've progressed way beyond asolar logos, and what you have there, like the sections of an orange. I got this out of back in 1917, Alan Leo, I think he was more Virgo than Leo anyway, but Alan Leo wrote a book called Esoteric Astrology. And think of it, that was going to be like almost 20 years before DK wrote what I think to be his much more knowledgeable and practical book, but Leo was very good. And basically he said, well, you want to understand this? Just look at an orange. Peel the orange and you find these sections of the orange. And he called them by the name lunes, Lunes. And each one was of a particular type of deva attunement that would attract the constellational energy and concentrate it. Now, the big quote on this, I'm going to refer to it here because I think you'll see that it is useful. Comes late in the book on page 611 or something like that. And here it is. Page whatever. 621. In the understanding of the distinction between constellations as galaxies of stars and signs as concentrated influences will come fresh light on the science of astrology. So right there he's making the necessary discrimination between the origins in the Lord of a constellation, a cosmic logos and so forth, and the way for Earth or any other planet, that because they'll be concentrated differently, that these constellational energies get adapted for use on our planet. And that's why basically he's telling us that it's something you would never expect him to tell us. He's telling us that the tropical system, which measures all signs from the first point of Aries, is the more esoteric. He's telling us that. And as a matter of fact, just to confirm that point, let me go to page either 63 or 61 of this. Okay. Let's see. Might be 61. Let's see what I would do. Exactly. When the sun is in Aries, okay, Sun, Aries, same. I'll try to look that up. It's right here. I think it's on 63, if I get it. Yeah, here it is. He basically tells us this, that, I should always keep the highlight going. And here it is. When we state, for instance, well, he tells us that the month and the sign or the place of the sun in the heavens do not really coincide. For instance, when the sun is in the sign early Aries, right now, or Aries, it's just against a background of stars in Pisces. In other words, the vernal equinox, the first point of spring, the equal day, equal night, at that point, is pointing towards the constellation Pisces. So they don't coincide. And it's going to go all the way around the zodiac. So things are going to be very out of whack, thousands of years ahead of us. It's not going to be so close. Now here's the statement. When we state, for instance, that the sun is in Aries, like what's your sun sign? Oh, I'm in Aries, whatever. It conveys an esoteric truth, but not an exoteric fact. Now that's what all sidereal astrologers have to chew on if they're really going to understand their particular approach. Maybe when you're a 6th-degree initiate and you become a planetary life and an initiate beyond those degrees, the true sidereal of astrology will make its impact upon you. The sun was in Aries at the beginning of this great cycle, not so long ago really, but it is not in exactly the same position when it is found in that sign. So there was a time, and there always will be, when the 1st degree of Aries really lined up with the beginning of the constellation Aries. But then the vernal equinox started to move backwards, and before you know it, it was pointing to the stars in Pisces. And that's all because of the gyration of the Earth's axis, like a top, when you spin a top and it starts to wobble and all that. We have that kind of axis that wobbles, and because of the wobble, the first point of spring keeps on changing where it's directed to. So, some pictures would probably, from the internet, would probably help us here, but there you go. Constellations are one thing, and signs are another, though they are intimately related. Anything else, Karen?
Well, I was mainly thinking about the Davic lives, the difference between the Davic life of a constellation and a sign.
Well, very, very, very big difference in magnitude, you might say. This is a cosmic logos we're talking about, and it has solar logoi as its chakras. Well, the Earth as a little being doesn't have that kind of thing. So Davic lives keep on evolving in their scope, just the way the life of the heavenly men continues to evolve. But by the time you get way up there, they're working together in the most intimate union, and you can't really separate them so much the way you do right on our planet when we're dealing with astral phenomena and so forth. And I couldn't say the slightest thing about the kind of Davic lives that are involved there, except the general principle that they are great lives. Just like the Raja Deva lords relatively on our planet, Kashiti and Varuna and Agni and Indra and all that, they are relatively great lives. Now, there are higher correspondences to those lives that will be involved in a constellation's life, but he said absolutely nothing about it. All we can do is just assume that it is the case.
Thank you.
Michael.
Okay, you bet.
Michael.
Oh, yes. Tuya, is that?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, this is Tuya. I was just thinking about this question by Karen, that maybe we could understand that way, that whatever we have in the form, everything is about the area of the mother, because we have to put ourselves further than from the cosmic from the cosmic physical plane until the cosmic mental plane, and all of that underneath is in the area of mother. And also the Pleiades for us is the one kind of source, which is mother source. So when we are studying these, what is Devic or what is human, in one sense we cannot separate that at all, because everything is in the realm of mother. And when we think about Devic lives, it's always that the Devic lives are the builders of the form, and then also ensouling it, like the 7 great Rajadeva lords, they are the ensouling factors of those planes. And our God is called also Mahadeva Lord. So what all of these are meaning, I think it is something in us, the consciousness is so separated, as you were hinting earlier. But I think that when we look the direction towards the manifestation, we will see the activity of the Shakti or the Mother. And I think that would help us to just make these 2 points. Are we thinking about evolution, which is out of the matter or the manifestation? And then we become into the realm of the spirit. But when we think anything which is still into manifestation, we could think that all is Devic. And all of these energies, how we can study them, they are, the Devic lives are, because they are built from these energies. The Devas are built from these energies, or they are the energy in one sense, and they are the ensouling factor of this energy as well. So when that's why they respond immediately to whatever kind of energy it is, which is directed via the sun. How the energy hits our little realm, it comes via the sun, and all of these Devic lives under the sun in this solar system responds in every single hour, as it is said, like the hourly astrology. All of these little form or realms are responding.
Planetary
Did it help
hours,
anything?
there used to be these kinds of books called the Table of Planetary Hours, and every day had its particular time units, which were conditioned by a particular planet and the devas associated with that planet. So you could do something appropriate under the planetary hour of, let's say, Mars, which you would not do under the planetary hour of Venus, and so forth. Of course, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, please finish what you were saying.
What I was just saying, scope is a big issue, because remember that they fight on the astral plane, they harmonize on the Buddhic plane, they become one on the monadic plane, but look, we're dealing with cosmic logoi. So it starts out that the entire cosmic physical plane is a physical body. And so it goes with the cosmic astral and cosmic mental. So we might say, well, these are now the higher devas, but in terms of the Lord that they are working with, they just have their normal place. It's as if they live on the physical, as if they live in the personality of this great being. So from that perspective, they are like personality devas, and you have to get up onto the cosmic Buddhic plane and beyond in order to have the corresponding elevation. And on it goes, the planes get bigger and bigger and bigger. This whole thing that you're looking at, which is our biggest map that he's given us, is just a super cosmic physical plane. This whole thing.
Exactly.
And there are devas corresponding.
Yeah, and here we see like the principle of emanation. Because when we think about any Devic form or any Devic activity, it is always about emanation. And it was a little bit on the same line what Karen was putting forward, because when we were reading that about how to respond to the signs or constellations, I couldn't complete my thought, but I was just thinking how anything, and it has to be studied via the sun, how sun is moving, and that is then affecting to different axes of these energies, how they hit into our system, and let us take like a system of a human being, human body. All of these energies affects during the day differently in our body.
Yeah.
In Chinese medicine, it is talked about these meridians.
Meridian times, yeah.
Yes, how these meridians are activated, how the sun is moving, and that is direct response from the Devic lives that we are built from.
Yes. But one of the very interesting things is that the solar logos has connected with it a great solar angel. So it doesn't just, it doesn't only concentrate down here where man gets a solar angel. On a much higher turn of the spiral, a much greater solar angel is somehow doing for our solar logos here what our little solar angel is doing for us. And our little solar angels are emanations of the great solar angel of the solar logos. And you can imagine this might go, on and on. We just have a limitation. It all kind of disappears into the fog if we try to go too far with specific knowledge. But we can see that the law of analogy is holding good. Conflict with devas, harmony with devas, union with devas. 6, 4, 2, no matter what type of planes we're talking about.
And which sides of us are in harmony and which ones are not in harmony. I think, could that give us the clue how the constellation is affecting us, or is that the clue of the sign? I try to still work what the constellation means and what this sign means in my life, that I could understand what does it mean.
Here's the thing. No constellational energy is reaching you or me or anybody here in its pure form. Maybe the planet, but it's all got to be filtered and mediated, so the sign can carry very, very high energies, but it's not a direct shot from the Lord of the constellation. See, that's the thing. We're not there yet. We couldn't take that. It's got to be transformed.
Right, but I just try to understand this, how to even have one's journey to understand it. And I was thinking about the mind. So could there be any point? I'm Sun Capricorn, and I was thinking about this. The whole month, Sun goes via the Capricorn or whatever sign, and could that give any hint? Everybody could think. Can you find from that astrological sign that you have been born? Can you find that there is some coloring of that sign?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, because I can find a lot.
Yeah, I mean, when the sun changes position in the sign, the atmosphere just changes. You get around the solstice or Christmas time or Capricorn time, it's just so, if I can just use the word, Davically different than what you've been going through in Sagittarius. So different groups of devas from the signs, not from the constellations so much, but from the signs, come in and condition everything. And we're supposed to take advantage of that every month to build our causal body.
Exactly. And that's why he gives the full moon time so important. Yeah. How to start to build up towards the next full moon, when earlier is finished, to turn already towards that coming full moon.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Good. Okay. Thank you, Tuya, for those thoughts.
Okay. Karen says, thank you, Tuya and Michael. And Anne Veronica writes, please talk a bit more about the houses and the 4 arms of the crosses if they appear. I sense that the arms are the bridge, the antakarana, so they appear when it is built.
Well, first of all, in your horoscope, like any horoscope, the arms of the crosses are there from the very beginning, okay? So if I'm going to, go into this thing, and I'm going to look at coming. All right, so let's say these are the transits of the moment. Okay, so here it is. Let's just say these are the transits of the moment. And I could, if I wanted to, I could even keep the whole thing moving by going into dynamic and animate the chart. There it is. Okay. Now, the houses are the gray spaces between the black and purple lines. The chart of the crosses is right here. What it basically means to say is that this arm of the cross is ruled by Leo, Aquarius. This arm of the cross is ruled by Virgo, Pisces. And actually, it turns out that you've got 2 arms of the cross. Let's see. This is Virgo, Pisces, and this is Virgo, Pisces. I think we're going to get some, intercepted, possibly houses here. And then the next one, arm of the cross, is ruled by Libra and Aries, and then here by Scorpio and Taurus, and then here by Capricorn and Cancer, and then here by Aquarius and Leo. So those 12 spokes of the wheel are there already. And basically what you do is you look at every arm and see what planets are in the same sign and begin interpreting that way. And it will be a higher type of interpretation with a more spiritual nature than usually when you interpret the houses. Let's take our friend Jupiter here. It's intercepted. Yeah, that's what's going on. Okay. So in a way, it's interesting. Jupiter is on no arm of the cross, and neither is Venus is in Gemini. But let's take one that actually does exist. The Sun is in Cancer. And are there anything else in Cancer? The North Node is there. Mars is there. Mercury is there. You don't worry about them being in the 11th house as they are, with maybe the Sun in the 10th house slightly. You just say they're on the Cancer arm, and you interpret the arm with a higher spiritual indication. Now, we also used to do certain things, and I should dig it up for you, but in a way, this is not yet a course on esoteric astrology. I had in my mind, maybe to discuss the whole book with people. I've written out the whole book, okay? So basically, line by line, word by word, there's a lot of programs, 160 programs or something like that, of video talk about every word, basically, in the esoteric astrology book. But there's still something about talking about it together that helps it sink in. So one of the things we did was we looked at each house and said, what is the low meaning and what is the high meaning? Or what's the middle ordinary meaning? And we came up with a lot of different things. Like DK gives you a hint there. He tells you, well, the The first house is the physical body. Yeah, but from a certain point of view, it is the causal body. And if you want to take it still higher, you might find the monadic body. So you can keep spiraling these things up. The second house is your money, but it also can be your vitality, because, you know, the old saying, you spend your wealth to gain your health, then you, how does it go? No, it's the other way around. You spend your health to gain your wealth, and then you have to spend your wealth to regain your health. So it has to do with prana, that flowing golden substance, not just money in the conventional sense. So every one of these houses has a more spiritual meaning. Now, when you get into the future charts of the crosses, you just start with the spiritual meaning, and you don't concern yourself so much about the aspects and the technicalities. It's more like the quality of a certain planet is in an arm ruled by a particular sign, and you start out there. Now, what the new charts of the crosses may eventually be, I don't know. You know, he'll have to tell us what his idea will be here, but we do know it will offer a higher type of interpretation, and then we'll just, you know, forget about the houses. You'll just look here, okay, what have we got here? These two planets, oh, there's a bunch of interceptions going on here. I can see that. But let's just say these two planets are in Capricorn, okay? Mars and Saturn, pretty tough places for them to be. So is the South Node. So immediately, without worrying too much about, this one is 22 degrees, this is 18, this one's 17, I'll go right to the Capricorn arm and say, these planets are in the fifth arm of the cross. And then I'll give a higher spiritual interpretation. I hope that clarifies a little, because the arms are always there. It's just that we don't yet really know how to use them. And most people, when they look at their horoscope, they give rather conventional meanings. Oh, look what's going to happen to your home. Look what's happening to your money. Look what's happening to your job. Look what's happening to your career. And there are higher spirals involving each one of those categories that can be associated with interpreting the planets on the arms of the cross. I'm not yet sure what to do about interceptions. Maybe we'll have to just use an equal house system and everything will work out smoothly. I don't know. I haven't researched that part. Yeah, do you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yes, because this is very important point to realize that the cross is formed by the signs, and in the house we can have, even depending where one has been born, there could be even the case that in one house are three signs.
Exactly. And you couldn't do it. Yeah.
Yes, and that's why this is the question always, how, when one is concentrating upon these questions, that how the houses should be drawn. But what I have been thinking, that when we have few signs in the same house, the house is representing for us the realms of life, the aspects of life where something is happening. In what aspect of anyone's life something is happening. So if we have the few signs, most of us we have, I think it is telling us about some kind of transformation, because we human beings, we are not anymore on the level of that we are just concentrating upon very physical ways, very concrete ways. The human being is psychologically evolving, and that's why when we have huge energies working via the house, there are these what hierarchy was, and what Sanat Kumara wanted to emphasize, this division in order to develop our minds. So I think that's why in the houses we can see the transformational energies working. So it is a little bit frictionless because the signs are not on the same element. And when we want to be very go even deeper, we could see always, because the houses, they are based upon the crosses in one sense. So they have, behind the house, there is this fundamental energy. So every house is colored by some of the fundamental energy. So we could look via the elements. Let's say that the first house is always fiery house. But if we have here, you have the Virgo, so then there it brings the earth element into it. How does these two energies work together? Because we all want to somehow know what we should be doing and how we should be doing. So astrology gives us so much help for that. And then when we talk about the crosses, so the crosses are when our whatever planet is on whatever cross. So we have to look all of these 4 signs which are forming the cross.
That's right. And
all of these
bring them to the center in a synthesis.
Into synthesis.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. In some of our lives, certain areas of experience and certain circumstances coming from outside are meant to be a focus for us. That's why I say, do not get rid of the houses when you're dealing with your exterior life, because it shows you how you have to deal with certain circumstances and what energies you're going to use. It might not only be one energy, it might be 2 or 3 different zodiacal energies and different kinds of planets and different signs. You have to bring them all focused on that area. But if you want to talk about how you can be the cause yourself, how you can override circumstances. Now, he says that people with Uranus in Leo, they can dominate their circumstances. They don't have to be the victim of circumstance. Most of us, karmically, are the victim of our circumstances, and we have to work through them. But it's also possible to start from the inside out and dominate and control your circumstances, and the charts of the crosses will help you do that. What I have here is an equal house system, and you notice there's no intercepted signs. There is a line for each one of the signs because the houses are equal. And then you can associate everything here in Taurus with this 11th arm. You can associate everything here in Cancer, I should have said 9th arm. Here you can associate everything in Cancer with the 11th arm. It doesn't make any difference where in the house they are. So 1 is karmic. It gives you circumstances that trap you. You're in prison, and you have to work through your prison, oftentimes engineered by karma, and you use different planets, different signs to do that. And the other comes from the inside out, and you can dominate those circumstances. They become much less important in the life of an initiate. Circumstance, he tells us, becomes much less important, and he symbolizes that by discussing Uranus in Leo. Uranus is the veiled hierarchical ruler of Leo, and now we're talking about the initiate consciousness. Okay, well, good. Now, look, we have we're going to have to meditate soon. Is there anybody else here that is speaking up or wanting more?
No one else has their hand raised or has written a comment.
Okay, well, I think you get the idea. And so, Anne Veronica, I think Master DK will write about the charts of the crosses more fully when he starts his next presentation around the year 2025, and one of the very first will be astrological. That's what he basically is telling us. And there's all kinds of charts you can look at about yourself, but let's not get lost in the trees and not see the whole forest. And it's very important to live as a soul amidst all these different circumstances and changes and energies. Astrologers can get lost in the detail, and they can forget that they are really the unitive soul behind all of this. Again, it's a question of the one and the many. The many is all of this astrological information, and it can get incredibly complex. And the soul is the one. And then onward to the monad, which is still more of that. So, I think that deals with some of the issues there, and I think there's some hints there about how to proceed, but, let's see what Master DK says in another few years. Okay, well, look, now, Tuya, do you want to do a little on triangles here, or it's going to be very quick?
Okay, just do yourself.
Okay, so you'll do it tonight, right? You'll do the meditation.
Yes.
Triangles
yes.
meditation tonight. Okay, so look, well, let's see here. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. So let's this will be a little different. Let's try to, well, first of all, just get into the condition of meditation. And here we have before us, the pattern. But let's pretend that from our physical place, we are making, down here in the distributing center, within the physical body, let us say, we are applying for more energy from the soul. And we're really interested in that first line of the triangle that goes from the mental unit into the soul body. So we are invoking the higher power. And we all know that when we meditate, when we pray, when we call for higher energies, if our attitude is correct and self less, they do come. Now let us imagine that we begin to focus our consciousness for the second time, within the area here of the evocative force, which is the soul center. He'll say more about it as we continue. Now there's going to be a big flow along the baseline between the whole personality, not just the physical grounding part, but the soul is really going to let certain energies go. They represent our higher aspirations. They are inspiring, our higher thoughts, as DK says in Chapter 1 of White Magic. He tells about how the solar angel responds. So a big flood into the personality. Let's imagine that this golden lotus has all different colors, depending on your rays and all that, but that it's releasing those energies into our whole personality. And that back and forth along the baseline, and here we have the lower triangle being activated. It's been created. We invoke from the baseline, we invoke from the bottom of the diamond, and the soul is activated and floods the personality, and now there's more energy coming into the dense part, and in that dense part we evoke the soul, call on the soul, and the whole lower triangle is active in a new way. Just think about that. You're getting a lot of soul energy now, and even your body is responding to it. And of course, your whole personal self is becoming illumined. I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. This is work along the baseline and in the lower triangle. So now let's imagine that in the magnetic center, our second visit in the magnetic center, we are really an increasingly soul-infused personality. You know how he talks about it, 25% first initiation, 50% second initiation, 75% third initiation, and 100% atomic matter, fourth initiation. Now there's one more thing to be done. And let's just say we're not finished with our second visit to the magnetic center. But now we're going to re-relate our magnetic center not only to the evocative center, but to the emanating center. And what does this mean? Our magnetic center is filled with soul force. Let's see if we can feel that soul energy. It's as if like a pulsating golden aura, is all around the spheres of your personality and through. You've got a lot of soul energy flowing through you. And now what you can do with it is you can build by the ancient methods the Antakarana, in which, through the power of projection, a line of connection is reestablished with the emanating center. And it's going to be a two-way street, the monad and the soul-infused personality. Whether you're going to say, I assert the fact, Ray 1, I see the greatest light, Ray 2, purpose itself am I, Ray 3, let two merge with one, or just two merge with one, Ray 4. Three minds unite, Ray 5. The highest light controls, Ray 6. And the highest and the lowest meet, Ray 7. No matter which word of power you use, and it's going to take years and even lives, the contact will be made so that the monad, via its personality, the triad, directly contacts the soul-infused personality. And if we have a good rapport going with our egoic lotus, our solar angel, our angel of the presence, our soul, each is a little different aspect of it all, then we can begin to work on the assertion. I do this, I do that, Which will it be for you? Now, a lot of us are second-rate types. I see the greatest light, and some are first-rate types. I assert the fact. The occult groups are largely made of first- and second-ray souls at this time. Why is that? We can ask. So this little diagram shows us in process. Long ago, the emanating center built the causal body with the help of the angel of the presence. Then a personality was built and it operated step by step. Then it began to wake up and want something more, and it called upon the soul again. Then the soul filled that personality so that it became a soul-infused personality which could reach up to the triad and the monad in a completely conscious manner. That's what our little diagram can mean to us, who are human beings in process of being spiritualized. Where are you in this process? Okay, let's do the great invocation, and that tonight, Tuya will be leading the actual triangles broadcast, where we get very practical about the people that we are working with in the state of soul infusion. But for right now, let's close our work together with this great invocation, which is our great word of power and very, very useful in preparing the way for the coming of the Christ and his hierarchy. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. And from the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Oh. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next occasion, which will be 5 p.m. tonight, 8 o'clock here in Finland, and it's a GMT time. And some of you have been with this process ever since last night, where we did 2 hours on the absolute and related concepts, and that video will be ready soon. It'll be on Makara. So if you weren't able to be there, you can now take it in. And some of you managed somehow to also appear today for another 2 hours. So that's a lot of work, but we're working on 2 curricula, the curriculum of the soul and the curriculum of being, or the monad. We'll work on both together, and they will help us. Each will help the other. So tonight, in a broadcast, not a webinar, Tuya will present the triangles work. Lots of love and many blessings to everybody, and see you soon.